If you ever wanted to design a vintage sports t-shirt design that looks like it's been around for decades, I'm going to show you the exact Photoshop workflow that I use. What's up, Vintage World? Welcome back to the channel. If it's your first time here, thanks for watching and welcome home. My name is Marcus, owner of Vintage Vibe Studios. I make digital assets for graphic designers to help them design much more efficiently. In today's video, we're going to be designing a vintage sports t-shirt design. I'm going to be sharing with you my Photoshop workflow, so let's get into it. In order to build this all out, the first thing I want to do is get my elements all together. So I went ahead and took the liberty of getting all of my elements together. I've put those in a folder under my library. I've removed most of the background. The next thing we really need to do is start working on the composition. The first thing I want to do is kind of get the structure together. I'm going to go ahead and grab my text and my typography and figure out which fonts that I want to use. So if I'm correct, I believe for the bottom here, we want to type out Rodman's name, and I believe I used Crack House. Stretch this out here a little bit. Even though this is all kind of jumbled together here, we're going to work on our kerning, kind of spread these letters out a little bit so that it's obviously much more legible. If you can see down here, this is where our kerning is. And we're gonna change this. Let's just go ahead and go back to 0 and see what it looks like there. Yeah, that'll work. And I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of stretch this out just a little bit. Now, I've had people come at me in the comments like, oh, you shouldn't do that and that's gonna mess things up. And look, man, do your design how you wanna do your design. There's not really a right or wrong way when it comes to typography. If you need to stretch your typography a little wider, then stretch your typography a little wider. It's not, do you? Actually, no, let's undo that. I'm going to change and do this vertically and then write his name. And I believe I'm using, I'm not sure which font I used. We'll figure it out. Copper plate. That's what I used. Copper plate. I knew it was, no, I didn't. I'm lying. I thought I knew what it was. I didn't. I didn't. And again, we're gonna work on our kerning. The letters are way too spaced and spaced a little incorrectly for me, so we're gonna work on our kerning with this as well. So an easy way for us to fix that is to click into our letters, and I'm gonna highlight this letter, go back over to our kerning, and I'm simply going to use my arrow keys and kind of move this up. And now you can see that the spacing is a lot more tight here versus here. So we'll go ahead and highlight this letter, come back over to my kerning, use my down arrow. We're going to try to get this as close as possible. Do the same thing with I, come back over to my kerning, get that right about there. Same thing with the D and the E. I'm going to move these all a little closer. Get a little closer. Don't be shy. Kind of just dated myself just a little bit. If you know what commercial that's from, leave it in the comments. Most of you probably don't even remember, but if you do, leave it in the comments. Extra points for those who remember what commercial that's from in the comments. Now I'm just going to stretch this down so that I'm kind of closer to the R in Rodman. There we go. And I don't want this to be wider than the Dennis, so we'll make this right about there. It's gonna make sense once I start adding the elements. So now that we have a little bit of our composition together, we're gonna start adding in the elements to fill out the composition. So we're gonna come over to our library, and the first thing I wanna do is drag in this background, which is Dennis. I thought this was a pretty dope photo of Dennis. I'm gonna drag this over like that. Leave that right about there. You can see that this side of him kind of matches up with the end of the N in his name. That way I'm kind of filling out this rectangle, if you will, and then we'll get elements to fill in these blank spots. So the first thing I want to do is bring in this photo of Dennis. We're going to drop this right here and then size this down a smidge. And I want to drop this right about here. And then we'll get Dennis across his name here. I'm gonna size him down just a smidge. And we'll bring in a couple more of our elements. We'll bring this in. This is where things start to get pretty interesting. So per the design that I had originally recreating this, I had another thought. So when you look at the original, I've got the nice little circle with Dennis on it right here. But I had a thought when I wanted to recreate it, and I thought this would be really cool if I kind of make him smaller to larger. So I'll show you what I mean here in a second, but I want to kind of remove the circle, and we're gonna make him smaller to larger, kind of almost coming out of his arm. We'll size this down, and this is gonna be my smallest image of him. So it's gonna need to be kind of tiny, right about there. And so what we're gonna do is just duplicate this image about 4 or 5 times. So Command or Control J, Command or Control J. Actually, let me go back, Command or Control J. So now I have one copy of him. I'm gonna move this over slightly. And if we get in here nice and snug, see what we're working on. We're gonna move this over and size him up just a wee bit. And then we'll move him back over here to where he's kind of like, I don't wanna say covering his leg, but for lack of better terms, covering his leg. And then all of this stuff, we're gonna mask out when we get to the final portion and tighten everything up. Right now, we're just still working on the composition. So now that we got this one here, we're gonna duplicate again, Command or Control J, move him over slightly again to right about there. And if you can't get it specifically, like where you want it to be, use your arrow keys to kind of bump things over to where you want them. Size him up, and then I'm gonna duplicate this one more time and move him over, and then size up. So now that we have everything kind of where we want it, I might do one more. But once we get everything where we want it, we're gonna put all of those into a group with Command or Control G. So let me see, we'll zoom out, kind of get some perspective. That's not actually too bad. That's actually nice. That's not bad, that's not bad. So what we're gonna do is come over to our layers, and we're gonna grab this Dennis, the top one, and then scroll up to or scroll down, whichever way you start. Hold Shift and click on the very top layer, Command and Control G to put those all into a group, and I'm gonna name this so we're working clean. This way everything is in order. If I have to go back and try to find something with all of these layers, that way I know what group I'm working with and I can just go straight into that group. Since we have most of our composition together, we've got our background, we've got this image here, we've got Dennis laid out, we've got our typography. The next thing we're gonna do is we wanna lay out the stars here. So this is gonna be the center point from where I do the stars across the top. And I'll show you how we actually start doing that. As opposed to trying to do it manually and get in here and try to, well, let me duplicate this and then I'll move it over this way, and maybe I can turn it a little bit and do that. You could try to do that if you want to, but it's a seriously long process. So let me show you the easy way to go ahead and do this. You want to create an ellipse. So let's come over here to your ellipse. Most of the time you'll use a circle or maybe a square. This time we're going to use a star. So we want to go ahead and grab our star, and we're going to draw out an ellipse star about that size. And to make sure that I'm in the center, there's a couple of different ways that you can make sure that you're in the center. You can either come over here to where these little icons are up here, where these 3 little dots are. Make sure that you're on canvas and not selection, because being on selection can kind of throw you off. So make sure that you're on canvas, and that'll make sure that everything is centered up to your canvas itself. The other way that you can do it is you can drag down from the top for your rulers, then drag over from the left with your rulers. If you don't see your rulers, Let's go up to view. We're gonna come down to show. We're gonna come down to rulers. There's your rulers. I'm gonna make sure that I'm in the dead center, and it's gonna make much more sense once we get into how we're gonna make this little arc for our stars. So we're here. I'm gonna drag this all the way down to the center, or as in the center as much as possible. If you really want to get into the weeds, you can zoom on in and, you know, see the center there. But I think that's as much in the center as I want it to be. Now that we've done that, I'm going to change my angle up here in the top. And I think my sweet spot was right around 15. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And once we've done that, the next thing you want to do to duplicate all these stars is hold down Control, Alt, Shift, and T. You're going to hit T over and over again so that you can have a circle of stars. So hold down Control, Alt, Shift, and then T, and we're just going to duplicate these stars all the way around. You're like, well, Mark, that doesn't make much sense because you're not going to use all of these stars. I understand. I'm going to clean everything up when we get to the end. So we have all of our stars here. And again, we're going to be working clean. So over here, I'm going to go ahead and list this as stars. And then what I want to do is kind of set this toward the background. So I'm going to grab my stars, I'm going to move them toward the background. That way they're behind stuff and I have depth. I'm going to size this up a bit because I just really want these stars showing. So I'm going to size this up just a smidge and then drop these down. That way my stars are kind of at the edge of my design, filling out the top of my design. And that's right about where I want that. The next thing that we want to do is start bringing in one more element. So we'll go back over to our library. We're going to bring this Dennis, grabbing what he's known for, rebound. Man, tell me in the comments, tell me another NBA player that was as dominant on the boards as the Worm. Yes, I know Shaq was great for like dunking and stuff like that, but tell me another person, vintage 90s, 80s, what have you, that was as dominant on the boards defensively for grabbing rebounds. I don't know of another player. If you do, by all means, let me know, but I would beg to differ that there's somebody better than Dennis Rodman. I'm going to size him up. We're going to put him right about there. And what we're doing right now is kind of filling in these, not necessarily blank areas, but kind of blank areas. Turn him just a wee bit. And that way, I kind of want this basketball right in the middle of the star. Kind of turn him and then size him down just a smidge. And then the last element we wanted to bring in, I believe, was the signature. I'm gonna bring that over here, kind of turn that this way. And what we wanted to do with the signature is we wanted to turn that red, I believe, as well. So we'll double click on that layer, go to color overlay. Since that was the last color that we used, that'll be what pops up automatically, and we'll size this up a little bit. And we're just kind of filling out the composition right about there. And with these little Rodmans, since we have this down here, I kind of want to size this up a little bit as well. So now that we've done that, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to start detailing our typography so that we can get some depth into our typography and a little bit of motion. I think I used a shadow, or was it an outer glow? It might have been an outer glow. There's my outer glow, kind of like that. And I think I had a stroke. I didn't have a stroke. I think I put a stroke on the typography. It would be something terrible if I had a stroke right here trying to do a design. That would be horrible. So let's do that just to give it some depth. And we're going to do the exact same thing with the Rodman. So what I want to do is work smarter, not harder. We're going to go to Dennis's layer. I'm I'm gonna right click, and then we're gonna copy layer style. I'm gonna come down to the Rodman layer, right click, and then we're going to paste layer style. And I do believe I want the stroke to be maybe on the outside. Nope, on the inside. And I'm just gonna increase this so that I can get a little separation. Now, to get some separation as well, we're gonna do the exact same thing with Dennis. We're gonna add some drop shadow. We'll add a little bit of a fade on this picture here. So let's grab this Dennis, double click into that layer. I want to do a bit of a drop shadow. Definitely not purple. I don't know what I was working on. And definitely not that far out. So we want that distance to be much closer. And I'll increase the spread just a smidge. Not a lot. And then the size right about there. And I'll come down on the distance just enough. You want just enough that you can see that there's a little bit of separation. You don't want it to be so overpowering that you're creating a block, basically, right? You don't want that. So just a little bit of separation. So my distance is at 2, my spread is at 9, and I'm gonna bring down the size a little bit as well. So my size will be 5. I think that's good. Now we're gonna add a small fade here on this Dennis, and we're gonna double click into this. And what I wanna do is add a gradient overlay, and we'll see how that looks. And I don't want it to be so harsh that it looks like that. We don't want that. We want a nice gradual fade. And there's one thing I need to do. So I wanna put this Dennis behind Rodman to give it a little more, you can hide it a little better. So now that if I do this fade and put a gradient map here, it's not as harsh. And this Dennis, excuse me, I don't want it as vibrant. So let's go down to Rodman, and we'll go to our outer glow, and I'm gonna take this way down. This, and we're gonna have a nice gradual fade. Just add a layer mask, grab a quick brush, nice soft brush, and we're gonna fade that out nice and smooth. Make sure that you're on your layer mask. If you're not on your layer mask, then you're working a lot more destructively, and that's not what you wanna do. Working destructively, it's harder to come back to try to make edits when you're working destructively. So if you work in your layer mask, it's not as difficult. I think that's working right, that's working right. So the only thing that I wanted to change up, if we go back to the original, is I want to change this up. So in order for us to get this look, what I want to do is I'm going to come back to Dennis's name. So we'll grab this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the fill out and replace the fill with the stroke. So the first thing you want to do is we're going to come over to fill. We're going to remove that all together. And if you look, it makes a really cool effect, but that's not entirely what I want to go for. So we'll come over to here and let's change this to white. And now we have still kind of a cool effect, but I've got an outline so that you can see the name much better. And I'll change that stroke to the outside. Click OK with that. And now you have pretty much the entire design already filled out. What I want to do is go back and we're going to clean up how these stars are at the bottom and kind of overlapping at the top. So we're going to clean all of that stuff up. And the best way to do that is with, you guessed it, a layer mask. Let's grab these stars and we'll go into this layer and we're going to create a layer mask. We'll go back and grab our brush. This time I'm going to change my brush to hard brush. And now we're just going to go back in here, making sure that our forefront color is black. And we're going to make sure that we're painting over kind of this edge here, and all down there. Grab my brush and we're just going to get in here and paint all this away. You're like, well, Mark, that's just, those right there. What about the rest of them? Glad you asked. So an easy way to fix that, you can bring everything in, rearrange all of this, Bring everything in so that you can see it. And we're just gonna paint all of those away. So go back to my brush, making sure that I'm on my layer mask, and we're simply gonna paint all these away. Get your Bob Ross on. Once you're done, you can size that back up. We have the basis of our composition complete, design complete. Now it's time to start adding some of the vintage flair to it. Group everything together and then grab yourself a nice vintage brush and start adding texture to it and give it that kind of vintage worn feel. I'm gonna go down to my bottom layer and then come all the way, scroll all the way up to my top layer, click onto that. When I'm holding Shift, Command or Control G to put that all into a group. And then you guessed it, we're gonna add another layer mask. Go to my brushes. Now, if you've seen any of my videos on how you add texture or that vintage flair to your designs, this is what's really important to give it kind of an organic feel. So once you've grabbed your brush, you're gonna come over to your brushes here, and on the very top layer where it says brush tip shape, we're gonna make sure that flip X and flip Y are check marked. If you don't hit those two, then what happens is your brush doesn't turn, it doesn't look as organic as it would if you had something that was super, super old, right? So I'll put the video up in one of these corners of how I explain all of that. Now, when I go back into my shape dynamic or my brush tips, I change my percent to about 91. Those people that know me know why I use 91. And no, I'm not using it because of Dennis's number. That's not the reason. Ask me why 91 in the comments and I'll tell you why. Now I'm gonna go back to my brush again, making sure that my forefront is set to black. And then I'm going to kind of clicking in here and there. Now you can go ahead and just swipe across and that will work just as fine as well. And your brush is gonna turn. So I don't want you to think that you can't go ahead and do that. The reason why I do much more clicking than I do painting is because I have a lot more control as to where I want to put the distressing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna kind of put my distressing in strategic places. The way I like to think about it is if I had this t-shirt, where would there be high contact areas? So if this was on my shirt as it is right now, or as it would be right now, where would be a lot of high contact areas? It would be lots on the corner, maybe on the bottoms, not so much in the middle, maybe strategically placed in the middle, chest area, stuff like that. So I like to think of it that way. And those areas are kind of what brush up or are high contact areas. We'll put some over here, maybe a little over here. There might be some right there. And I really feel like Bob Ross when I do this, but you know. So now that we've got this pretty well taken care of, what we want to do now is mock this up and see what it looks like on a t-shirt. So now we've got our mock-up blank. We're gonna go ahead and drop in our image and we're gonna size this up. So the first thing I wanna do, that looks good already. So the first thing I wanna do is drop my image in, then I wanna size it up how I think it should look on the t-shirt, and then we're gonna enhance the color and make sure that it looks as vintage as possible or as realistic as possible. We're gonna convert this into a smart object. You're like, well, Mark, why do you convert it to a smart object? Great, I'm glad you asked. The reason why we want to convert that into a smart object is because any adjustments we do with that layer, those adjustments will stay with that layer. What do I mean by that? So let's say I wanted to do a levels adjustment. Let's say I bring this shadows in, I kind of bring the highlights in a smidge, and I mess with the midtones. So now once I click OK, if we go back to my layers, those adjustments are staying with that layer. Next thing I'm gonna do is go to image, gonna go to adjustments, brightness and contrast. Once I bring up my brightness and contrast, I wanna make sure that legacy is check marked, and I'm gonna adjust my contrast, and I'm gonna adjust my brightness. What you really wanna do while you're doing this, you're looking to make this as realistic as possible. that the image is actually on the shirt, faded into the shirt as best as possible. And you're gonna have to play around per design to make sure that you get the desired result. So there you have it, everything all mocked up, ready to go. So we took from the design concept, mapped everything out, got our composition all together. I hope that helps somebody out when it comes to designing a vintage t-shirt. If you got any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you're looking to start your graphic design journey, please take a look at the description. I've got a free Vintage Vibes starter pack for you. What are you gonna get in that? You're gonna get textiles, you're gonna get patterns, you're gonna get design information to help you navigate through all of the noise when it comes to starting this design journey. There's tons of information out there. This kind of narrows things down to help you get a start and focus in on a couple of specifics. If you got anything out of this, make sure you like, share, subscribe. It costs you absolutely nothing, supports the channel, and it means the world to me. Also, make sure you hit that notification bell so you can get notified when we drop videos. I try to drop videos every single week. We will talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.